Hey everyone, welcome back. Johnny B here with devslopes.com, and in this lesson we are going to work on logging in the user. So up till now, the only way to kind of log in was to actually create an account. But I'm getting tired of creating accounts every single time, so we're gonna get this whole login issue fixed. All right, so what do we need to do? Well, let's check out Postman, and I want to show you what's going on here. So when we log in a user, let's see here. Can I log in with this account? Yeah. So when I log in, what is returned to us is an auth token, okay, and a username. And we save that into the user defaults for the user and the auth token. But that doesn't give us the other information we need, which is the username, the avatar image, the background color, and those other things. So the only function that we have so far that gives us that information is when we add a user, we get back this JSON object, right? And that contains all of the user information that we need. So we're going to need a new function. And the API provides us one, and that function is called the find user by email function. All right, and so it's this route right here. So user by email, and then at the end you append the user's email. And that function actually returns the exact same JSON as the add user. Okay, so that gives us the ID, avatar color, avatar name, email, and name. Okay, so this is what we're going to work on first. We're going to create a new function that can go and fetch that information based just on the user's email that we get after we log in. Okay, so we get the user's email and auth token, then we use that email and auth token to get the rest of their information. All right, so let's get to it. We're going to do this in the auth service.swift file. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom and create a new function. We're going to call this func find user by email. Okay, and this one, we don't actually need to pass anything into it except for we're just going to have our completion handler. So we're going to say at escaping and completion handler. All right, there we go. So first off, let's go ahead and create our URL. So I'm going to run over to utilities. Where are you at? Here you are, constants, and our next URL is called let URL underscore user by email. That is going to equal the base URL, and then needs some quotation marks, base URL, and then user slash by email slash, and then over in our auth service, we're going to append to that the user's email, but we'll get to that in a second. Alrighty, and we don't actually need a body. We don't need to do any lowercase email or anything. We will need the bearer header, but we have that saved as or do we? Oh, no, we do not. Okay, so we need, we're going to be using this header right here. And so since we'll be using it in multiple locations, let's go ahead and I'm just going to cut this header. This is from the create user function. I'm cutting that header, and we're going to jump down here to our headers section. And I'm going to call this bearer header, okay, because this is the header that contains the authorization token. Okay, going to copy that, and then go back to our auth service.swift, and here we're going to replace header here with bearer header. Okay. All right, so now we're back in the find user by email. We've created a constant for the bearer authorization token header, and now we're going to create our find user by email Alamo fire request. Okay, so we're going to say Alamo fire dot request, and we're going to use the same one we've been using. This time, the URL, though, we're going to have to do a little bit of string interpolation. We're going to start with the URL by user, or user by email, and then we are going to add onto that the user email. Okay, and remember, this function is going to be called directly after we call the login function right here, which saves to our user defaults the user email and the auth token. So that's why we have access to those in this function. And the type is, what is the type? It might be a get actually. Yeah, so this function is actually a get. So this will be our one of our first get methods here. So to do that, we just say dot get. The parameters are nil. We don't have a body to pass this time. The encoding is, oops. The encoding is JSON encoding dot default, and the headers is our constant bearer header that we just created, and the response is response JSON. I'm going to close this side pane just to give us a little bit more room, and clicking here, pressing enter, and renaming the data response to just response, and then getting rid of that placeholder for code. Okie dokie, so now we are doing essentially exactly the same thing as we did in the create user function now. Okay, so I could actually just copy this entire section here from the create user, because the response and the JSON is exactly the same like we saw in Postman. So here is the response for the add user, and here it is for the find user by email. Okay, but we do not want to violate the dry principle, right? So what we need to do is we're going to go ahead and just extract out all of this right here. Okay, so I'm going to cut this, and we're going to create a new function called func set user info. Okay, and into that we are going to pass data of type data, and then I'm going to paste what we just cut, and then right up here where we cut it from, I'm going to call that function that we just created. So I'm going to say self.set user info data, and we're going to pass into it this data right here that we're getting from the response. Alrighty, so basically all we're doing is if the response error is nil, we're going to extract the data from the response. Then we're going to pass that data into this function right here, which is essentially the same thing that we did in our create user account or function, in which we extract the ID, color, avatar name, email, and name, pass those into the function over in our user data service, which is used to set the privately set variables inside of our user data service. Okay. And then up here in our create user, we can do a little bit of refactoring here as well. So I can delete this and say self.set user info data, and then pass in the data right there as well. All right, so I'm going to save that. And now we have a way at any point to, as long as we have a valid email, to make an API request and retrieve the information for any specific user just by passing in the user's email right here. Okay, so let's use that over here in the login view controller. And we haven't actually done much work in here, so we're going to need to add a bunch of IB outlets and do some work here. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. First, let's go ahead and add a spinner, just like we did in our create an account. We're going to open our right pane, search for activity indicator, and I'm going to just drop that in right here. And we're going to select this attributes inspector, set the style to large white, and then change the color to our purple that we've been using. Then I'm going to select the align constraints right here and say horizontal and vertically in container. And then I'm going to go to the size inspector and select the align center to Y and enter in -100 as a constant, and that'll just pop it up for us right there. That looks good. And I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to open up our assistant editor by holding Option and clicking on the login VC. All right, here we go, and we are going to need outlets for the username, password, and the spinner. Okay, so I'm going to create our little section for our outlets. And with the username label or text field selected, I am control dragging, and I'm going to call this username text. I'm going to say connect. Then for the password, same thing, control drag, and I'm going to say password text, txt. And finally for the spinner, I'm going to control drag and say spinner. All right, I'm going to connect those. And then let's see here, close pressed, create account button. Looks like we also need a login button. Okay, so I'm going to just put that right here, holding login, control dragging, and I'm going to say login pressed. I'm going to change that to an action, and that looks good, so connect. Alrighty, then let's go ahead and go back to our standard editor. And let's get to work. So let's jump back into our login VC, and let's do a little bit of UI setup first. Just like in our create account VC, we're going to want to change the placeholder text of these two text fields. So let's create a function for setting up the view. I'm going to say func set up view. Okay, and instead of writing all that out again, I'm just going to go back into our create account VC and steal a couple of these. Then I'm going to copy that and jump back into login VC and paste that, and then just replace. Looks like that one's already the same, and replace this one here, username, and change the placeholder text to password. And that should be good. And then we're going to hide the spinner to start out. So spinner dot is hidden is equal to true. And I'm going to save that. So now the last thing in our login VC that we need to do is, well, first we need to, of course, call the function that we just created. Always forget that one, setup view right here. All right, and then here for the login pressed. So what's going to happen when we press the login button? We are first going to log the user in with the username and password that they entered. Then we are going to go through the auth service.instance.login user, where we will log in through the API, which will return to us the user's email and the auth token. We save those into auth service, and then we use the find user by email to go ahead and populate all of our user data service information that we need to do things like show the avatar's images and usernames, etc. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to do is say spinner dot is hidden is equal to false. So once we click it, the spinner is going to pop up, and we're going to start it animating. So I'm going to say spinner dot is animating, or I should say start animating. So spinner dot start animating, and then we are going to make our then we're going to unwrap our username and password. So I'm going to say guard let username is equal to username text. Come on, username text dot text, where, and this is just to do a check to make sure that we have that we don't have an empty string. I'm going to say user name text dot text does not equal an empty string. I'm going to close this right pane, else we are just going to return out of this function. And then same thing for the password. So I'm going to copy this and paste it and say pass is equal to, copy this, password text.text, where password text.text is not equal to an empty string, else return. Okay, so then we can call our login function. So I'm going to say auth service dot instance dot login user, and we're going to pass into it the username. So this is actually, I named these poorly. The username is not actually the user's name, the username is the email. But that's okay. This should actually be email. So I'm going to change this right here to email. There we go. All right, so email, we're going to pass in the email. Password, we're going to pass in pass. Then for the completion handler, press enter to get our closure. I'm going to say success and get rid of that. So I'm going to say if success. So if the login is successful, then we are going to use our brand new function that we just created, the find user by email. Okay, so I'm going to say auth service dot instance dot find user by email. Completion is success, and if it's successful, we're going to say if success. Then we have repopulated our user data service information. We now have the avatar color, name, the username, and email. Okay, so that's great news. And so at this point, we've logged in. What we want to do is we're going to send out our post notification to let everybody know who cares that we have logged in, that the user data has changed. So I'm going to say user notification center dot default dot post, and let's see here. This is the one we want right here. So the name is notif underscore user data did change, and the object is nil. Okay, I'm gonna save that. And then just a few other things that we want to do. We're gonna say self dot spinner dot is hidden is equal to true. Self dot spinner dot stop animating, and then lastly we're going to dismiss. So self dot dismiss animated is true and completion is nil. All right, wonderful. So I'm going to save that, and I think that's actually everything that we need here in the login VC for now and forever, actually. So I think this one is done. But yeah, let's go ahead and test it out. I'm going to run it. Alrighty, so I'm going to open this up, press login, and I'm going to log in here, e.com, password 123456, and log in. Got our spinner up just like we wanted. Oh, hey, there we go. All right, so we are successfully logging in. All right, gonna log out and just try that one more time with a different j@j.com, 123456, and there we go. Alrighty, so we have logging in covered. Okay, but I want to show you something. If you do Command Shift and you go HH, then you get this here. So I'm going to close our app. So closed it, and then I'm going to reopen it. Now we were logged in, right? We were logged in as Johnny B. So I just reopened it, and you would expect, you know, from your normal use of other apps that we would, you know, still be logged in. And we kinda are, because if you see here, the Boolean is still set saying that we're logged in, but we don't have any of our user info or anything. So we need to fix that. So how we're gonna do that is here in our chat VC, what we're gonna do is when we load up the app, we're gonna go ahead and just do a check. So we're gonna do a check if we're logged in, and if we are, then we're going to go ahead and call that function, the find user by email, do our post notification that user data has changed, and that should get us going in the right direction. So I'm going to say if auth service, come on, if auth service dot instance dot is logged in. So if we are logged in, then we are going to call the auth service dot instance dot find user by email function. Okay, success. And so here, all we're going to do is post the notification saying that we have logged in, so user data has changed. So notification center dot default dot post, and the notification that we're posting, the name of the broadcast that we are blasting out is notif underscore user data did change. Object is nil. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Okay, so this is all hunky-dory, but if we come into our channel VC, this view might not have been instantiated at the time that notification is fired off. So what we also need to do is here in view did appear, we need to do a check and set up the user data accordingly. So in other words, we need to do everything that is being done right here in view.did.appear. So let's go ahead and create a function for that. So I'm going to say func setup user info, and I'm going to just copy or cut everything out of this user data did change and put you right here. And then I'm going to call setup user info here and here in view.did.appear. That way, if we're opening up the app from scratch, ChatVC loads up and we have been logged in previously, so our auth token emails are saved. We're going to find our user information, and then when we open up Channel VC here on view.did.appear, we're going to do a check here, and we're going to say, oh, hey, I have everything that I need to set up the user info for a logged in user. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that and test it. And I think we ended with a logged in user, so yep, and there we go. All right. So from a fresh start, we loaded up. We got our user information via that new function that we created and loaded up all of our UIs accordingly. So that's pretty exciting. And if I log out, then it goes back. And if I close the app and then reopen it, or I guess I didn't actually close it. Let's see here, come on. So closing it and then reopening it, and everything should be blank. Yep, so and then we can log in again. e@e.com, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and boom. All right, so great. So we in this lesson, we created a new function so that we could get the a user's information based off of their email. And then with that information, we were able to set it so that we can log in users from the login page instead of having to do the whole create account cycle every single time we wanted to log in. And then we also set it up to where if you're launching it from scratch and you have already logged in the past, you don't have to log in again. Now it just logs you in automatically. So that's really nice. All right, so we're making great progress. I know you guys are probably itching to start actually working with WebSockets and the actual chat part of this app, but sorry about that. But this has been a lot of lead up to get into it, and but I mean we've learned a ton so far. Learned a lot about web requests using Alamofire and working with APIs and everything. So yeah, I hope you guys are having fun. And just to finish off here, I'm going to add our progress. Make sure that you are doing the same on your end, and I will see you all in the next one.